WHOW.
Top of the morning. Thanks for being with us. I'm your host today, Seth Lawrence. The WHOW Morning Show streams to Facebook and YouTube, brought to you by Peterson Insurance, your Pekin Insurance agent in Clinton. My guest on the Zoom today is Tony Kirkman, Executive Director of the Piatt County Mental Health Center. And good morning, Tony. Good Bears win yesterday. How you feeling this morning?
Morning, Seth. Our Bears, they figure it out again another way. So we can just keep playing the basement of the NFC. We will be great.
Yeah, I had a friend point that out to me yesterday. The schedule certainly gets a little tougher for Chicago, but I'll tell you what, you got to win the games that are on your schedule. You know, you can't, nobody's complaining about the, you know, like there's going to be people that, the schedule, but you can only win the games on your schedule, man.
That's right. Yep. So it's a good day so far until we have to go up north, and it might be a little bit more. It might be a different scenario.
Well, you never know. That's why, it's been a crazy year. That's why they play the games. So at any rate, Tony, let's dive into an ordinance out of the city of Monticello. Of course, Monticello, right in the heart of your service there in your service area there in Piatt County. What's going on in Monticello? What they do, and are you a fan of this?
Yeah, so one of the things that the city of Monticello was looking at was the harmful effects of what we know as 7-OH kratom. So kratom is a natural plant derivative. And what we found is that sadly, people have been able to synthesize some of the effects of kratom and package that to be more like an energy supplement. And the FDA has not approved this. It's not a regulated substance. And so you're seeing it being sold in a lot of gas stations, typically being heralded as like a 5-hour energy drink. But what we found out is looking at it is that one is as it comes in those really small little bottles, that's actually 2 distributions of the kratom. So people are already abusing it by taking more than what the quantity is. But the more concerning part is that it also exacerbates the effects of alcohol and other illicit substances. So,
really?
If you abuse the synthetic 7-OH kratom, that it can take on the symptomology of someone who's experiencing exposure to opioids.
Mm-hmm.
And then more concerning than that is that if you have been abusing these or using these at a high regularity, when you come off of them, individuals are seeing symptomology very similar to opioid use disorder.
Mm-hmm.
And we've seen that treated not only here at our facility, but with our colleagues across 72 over at Kirby Medical Center. And so it became enough of an issue that I felt that it was warranted to bring it to the attention of the city officials as well as the county officials. And so, last month, the city of Monticello approved the ban of the sale of kratom within the city of Monticello,
mm-hmm.
As well as the bans of the Delta 8, Delta 10 derivatives of THC.
Mm-hmm.
But we don't have that in our community, the Delta 8 and 10 at this point.
Mm-hmm.
For me, as I continue to say, is I'm not against recreational use of legal substances. I am against the distribution of unregulated substances that can be consumed by our community without fully understanding that, again, it's not FDA regulated and it has some pretty nasty adverse reactions.
Mm-hmm. So you led the charge on this.
I brought it to the attention of our city administrator and our chief of police. Chief Bross felt that it warranted to be brought to the city council, and so that I will share all of the credit or the blame with our illustrious chief of police, because we have a great partnership with Monticello Police Department, and again, it's not that we're against, because I don't want to be one of those people that bans everything. But I do think that, like, the USDA, the FDA, they are there to protect our consumers from unhealthy substances.
Mm-hmm. Sure. You mentioned you have seen this in your facility there treating it. Is this something that's on the rise because of its availability? Has it always been there? What's kind of the history of this thing?
So the history for me is I was exposed to kratom and its existence about 18 months ago, and I've just been watching the occurrence rate. And quite frankly, Seth, I didn't really see it in our county, so it wasn't anything that was on my radar until I started hearing about it in our intake process here at the center, and then went and talked to one of the local physicians across the street and said, "Are you seeing this?" And he goes, "Well, a handful, but they're increasing." And so it's kind of like trying to nip it in the bud before it develops into a bigger issue.
Mm-hmm.
And then again, as I keep coming back to, the fact that it's unregulated was a concern of mine. And quite frankly, that people were using the substance and having opioid-like withdrawal symptoms was quite concerning.
This reminds me of back when I was in high school. Was it speed was the big thing? That you could get at the gas station. It was really tough on a young person's heart. I think we had a kid when I was in high school actually pass away from doing too much of it. Am I remembering that right, Tony? Was it speed? Is that what everybody was all into back, maybe 2000s ish?
Yeah, I think so. Is like abusing diet pills and other stimulants like that. I would say that the kratom that we're looking at, in my opinion, more masks something that developed about 5 or 6 years ago, which was known as K2 or spice. It was the synthetic marijuana that was being sold as a novelty, but people were actually ingesting it. So I had just heard this morning, and I need to verify it, but I have been told that the FDA has banned the synthetic version of 7-OH kratom and has now made it a level 1 controlled substance. I need to verify that, but I think that history is going to prove that we took the right precautions here, because there are two different camps. Some people, most people I know say, yes, the synthetic kratom is bad. We need to get rid of it. But there are people that are proponents of kratom in its whole leaf or powder form. And so you don't want to overgeneralize and say all of it's bad. But I do think the stuff that's not regulated, and if it's true, the stuff that's just now been called a controlled 1 substance, we should get out of the hands of our community.
Mm-hmm, sure. Tony Kirkman is the executive director of the Piatt County Mental Health Center, our guest on the Zoom today. How do you balance that, Tony? With things that you recognize may not be great for the community, but at the same time, like, we have to have the free will to make our own choices, right? But then there's also the public health concern, and this is not good for really people writ large, and sweeping generalizations of like, this is just not a good thing for society and communities and that sort of thing. How do you balance the pursuit of what you were just talking about there?
Yeah, I think it's a great question. I don't know if I've really figured out the balance. I can tell you this is the first time I've taken a strong stance professionally on a substance, just because I was watching the encounter rates and watching the severity of the symptomology. I agree. Studies are saying that alcohol consumption has dire effects, but so does caffeine, so does sugar. And I agree. I think that if you have you are informed about your decision, and you know all of the potential negative effects, I shouldn't police what happens in your house. You're a red-blooded American. You should be able to consume what you want. It's some of the stuff that we don't know yet, and we don't fully understand, and quite frankly, is being mismarketed to you. Anytime you smoke a pack of cigarettes, there's that warning on the side that says, you can still consume this, but there's dangers, and you take on those risks. So, I don't see anything like that on these kratom bottles. I think they're just saying, hey, it'll perk you up. but there's some really danger there. So I guess that's probably a nice dodge to say I'm working through it personally, but it's the first step that I've ever gotten into with trying to back an ordinance. And we're not the only ones. We're one of 18 communities in Illinois. 18 of them already went in front of us. And there's a few states that have banned kratom. So it's not like we're setting precedent. It's just we are trying to get ahead of the curve.
Does that give you comfort that it's like, you know, if you were the first to do it, the pushback and maybe the path forward through that would be more difficult? But the fact that in Illinois, communities are doing this across the country, there's states, legislatures that are taking this up. Does that give you a little more comfort to be like, maybe I'm on the right path here?
Yeah, 100%. Quite frankly, the city of Monticello modeled their ordinance after the ordinance that was put in place by Kankakee about 6 months ago. But we have them ordinances on collar communities around Chicago, Kankakee, Jerseyville, Marion. They're all over the state of Illinois. So it's not like a Chicago thing or a Central Illinois thing. There's a good representation. If any of your listeners wanted to look up, city ordinances banning kratom, they'll find them from the tip of Chicago all the way down, like I said, down to Jerseyville. So pretty good state representation of what we're trying to do.
Fabulous. Well, on that note, Tony, I'll tell you what, let's take a break, my good man, and come back and talk some more.
Sounds good. Thank you.
Yeah, for sure. Tony Kirkman, Executive Director of the Piatt County Mental Health Center, my guest on the Zoom. We'll talk more with Tony next on the morning show. WHOW.
Good health starts with knowing where you stand. At SIU Center for Family Medicine in Lincoln, your annual wellness appointment is more than a checkup. It's your chance to talk with your doctor, set goals, and catch health concerns early. Our team is here to keep you moving forward every step of the way. Book your annual appointment today by clicking their icon at DeWittDailyNews.com. SIU Medicine. Better health for all. Forward for you.
Okay, it's time for our fan field goal kick of the game. Hey, he's wearing a Pioneer brand PowerCore Enlist Corn t-shirt. Of course, Pioneer brand PowerCore Enlist Corn beats the competition Shields by 7.7 bushels an acre. All right, here's the kick. It's good! Not bad for a guy in work boots.
Plant the 100th season of Pioneer. Visit pioneer.com/powerup.
The Illinois Emergency Management Agency has designated WHOW's many platforms on AM and FM, as well as WEZC 95.9 FM, as standby radio stations for emergency messages to be sent for severe weather, as well as for the Clinton Power Station. We also have a direct link to the National Weather Service for watches or warnings to air immediately when they're issued. Keep yourself and your family safe by tuning into the WHOW platforms on AM, FM, or streamed online, as well as on WEZC 95.9 FM.
At SIU Center for Family Medicine in Lincoln, our team makes it easy to get your flu shot and protect the people you care about most. Book your appointment now by clicking the SIU Family Medicine icon at DeWittDailyNews.com.
DeWittDailyNews.com is the area's leading local news source 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. Get the latest local news, obituaries, police splatter, weather forecast, and more with no paywall. Head to DeWittDailyNews.com to get the local information you need to know.
Your friend in Central Illinois, WHOW.
Once again, a good morning. Thanks for being with us. I'm your host today, Seth Lawrence. The WHOW Morning Show streams to Facebook and YouTube, brought to you by Peterson Insurance, your Pekin Insurance agent in Clinton. Again, my guest on the Zoom today is Tony Kirkman, Executive Director of the Piatt County Mental Health Center. And Tony, always good to see you, my good man. Let's dive into a new mental health bill coming through the state of Illinois. It's House Bill 1085. What is this? What's this all about?
Yeah, so recently passed in the very late parts of the evening in the veto session, Illinois Health Bill 1085 has a couple interesting parts as it pertains to mental health. It's called the Mental Health Parity Law. And so what this was brought to us by Representative Lindsay LaPointe. She's really kind of, if you're ever following mental health legislation in Illinois, she's the person I watch. because she's quite progressive in trying to bring services and funding to behavioral health providers. So in a nutshell, 1085 is going to try to adjust mental health service rates that we can bill insurance to be more in line with other healthcare costs. What we're finding is that reimbursement rates for mental health is about 23 to 56% below what other health cards are. So that's why they're calling it parity, is so that it comes up online of other healthcare providers. So the Illinois Insurance Commission is now going to have to figure out what that new rate is. And then insurance providers are going to have to cover that cost at that rate, with the exception of Medicaid, and the legislature's state insurance is exempt from that. So that's interesting. If you wanted to get more into that, why did lawmakers exempt their own insurance from that parity law? That would be an interesting question to ask legislators, not me. So 1085 talks about parity. It talks about allowing it's helping us out with the behavioral health workforce. So it allows people that are in process of licensure to provide services and billable services under another professional that is fully licensed. So Seth, if you were a licensed therapist and I was trying to go after my license, I could bill for therapy and do those services as long as you were providing my supervision. So that's the second part. Parts 3 and 4 is it covers 60-minute therapy. You're allowed to do mental health and substance use services on the same day, and it requires a timely 60-day contracting process for providers. So if I need to become an accredited provider, insurances would have 60 days to get me set up. So that is 1085 in a nutshell.
I always cringe when I hear Illinois and insurance rates, just because, not that I'm against what you're talking about, Tony, that's not it at all, but it always just feels like it's a forced thing upon insurance companies, and in return they're going to be like, okay, well, that's fine, we're going to have to up the price, up the premiums, up all the things to everybody else to make sure they can cover that, which, you know, that's a whole nother side conversation, if they can cover it or not, and do they need to raise the rates and all of that. But for the most part, like, it always comes on the back end of like, okay, but what does this mean for the consumer? You know, the person that has those insurance, are their rates going to go up, and, you know, things of that nature.
Yeah, I think you're right on. I think if you look at it on one side, thankful that we can get a better rate, so community mental health centers can stay in there and we can pay our workers a reasonable wage. But yes, the insurance companies aren't doing this out of the goodness of their heart, and they're going to pass that cost on to whoever's holding their policies. And so what that means, that's a concern of mine, is especially the small business owner that's trying to provide healthcare insurance for their staff. Who's making up that 23 to 52%? And it will be on their premium, at least a portion of that, which, you know, we here at the center are already talking about our own health insurance and the cost of it going up exponentially every single year. And how do we do that? So I think you're right on the money for that. Is somebody's going to pay for it.
Right. Yeah. So, but at the end of the day, I mean, from your perspective, I mean, I'm sure this is legislation you're all for, again, because, you know, you talk about the challenge of the funding piece. The other thing I come back to, Tony, and not to say, again, I'm not to say this isn't good legislation. That's not what I'm trying to say. But at the end of the day, the state of Illinois could keep its word on, you know, funding its you know, committed to you all, that you tell me, you know, every few months we don't see that, you know, what they've committed to us, we rarely see, right?
Yeah. I would probably say I'm not 100% in favor of this bill as it was passed, because 65% of our consumers have Medicaid or no insurance. And what that's going to do is it's going to make providers, again, more willing to take on private insurance. And those individuals, by no choice of their own, that are on Medicaid, it's going to be more difficult for them to find providers because their reimbursement rate, at no fault of their own, is smaller. So if we really cared about mental health access, we would have included Medicaid. But in my opinion only, I think the state is smart and said, if we included Medicaid, it would bankrupt the state. So we can't do that.
Yes, that's what's going to bankrupt the state.
Yeah, but that's my thing, Seth, is if we really cared about the word parity, it would mean you and I, who may be on private insurance, would have a similar access to somebody else that's going through an equally hardship. And it shouldn't matter about their socioeconomic status.
Yeah. And once again, and this is I keep offering up side conversations that are for probably another person for another day. But again, the state breaks things down into the haves and the haves not, the have and the haves nots. You know what I mean? Like the people that have it, the people that have it, or the people that don't. Now, and I wondered something, Tony. You said just a minute ago, struck me curious. Are you able to say, we'll take this patient because their insurance is better, but we won't take this person because they don't have insurance?
We're not. We're a community mental health center that has many grants that basically says that we can't discriminate based upon ability to pay. And so we won't be able to do that, but there are other agencies that would be able to, the best word I use is throttle the number of Medicaid patients, which, okay, so then it's kind of the same thing as if any of your listeners that have Medicaid know how hard it is to find a dentist.
Right.
It's nearly impossible to find somebody that's willing to help you out with cleanings and dental work. It's just going to make that pool of available therapists that much more difficult. And trauma is trauma. It doesn't matter, like if I'm well-to-do or if I'm under-resourced.
Yeah,
I deserve the right to be able to work through that.
Sure.
Healthcare or mental health is healthcare.
Yeah,
and wellness is wellness.
Tony, I have to leave it there, my friend. I apologize for that. Tony Kirkman, Executive Director of the Piatt County Mental Health Center. Network News is now.